Whether you're a seasoned vet of the payments industry or a brand new rookie who just heard the term dual pricing for the first time, you're in the right place. This is the only podcast that shares the strategies and stories behind selling merchant services, all from the perspective of those on the front lines. Welcome to AgentFirst. Okay, welcome back. Another episode of AgentFirst. I'm Jon. He's Justin.
Welcome.
So I and correct me if this is not kind of a topic, but I feel like it's a topic that you could talk about. I think one of the things we haven't gotten into here on AgentFirst, we
baseball.
Baseball, yes. This is the baseball episode.
Okay.
So ready. We haven't necessarily talked about like the tips and skills of being an agent, right? We've kind of talked about the industry. We've talked about some of the this and that, so for me, one of the things that when I first got involved in payments and started working with agents, I assumed that everybody that kind of grind of prospecting was an all day, every day for decades until you died or until you finally quit, right? And I realized really quickly that that's how everyone starts, right? Well, you start with your own Rolodex, and then you move on, right? But realize that really what ends up happening is you build a kind of a referral network or a referral process or some of that. And so I thought that would be one that would be good to talk about.
I love this topic. Absolutely.
So maybe start by telling me a little bit of your story about that when you shifted from one to the other, and then things that you've seen work or not work or such.
Oh, well, this is a fun topic. I can talk about this. We got a lot of card space on that card. I can talk about this a long time. I know this. I enjoy it because this is really the meat and potatoes of it, right? This is where we really get into like what's going to make you successful long term, and you can read all the there's a lot of great sales books out. There's a lot of it, but where the rubber meets the road really for everybody is different. So for me, and I've talked about this in a previous episode, I know, is when I started in the industry, you have to remember I was in Des Moines, Iowa. I knew sales very well, and of course the first thing is go hit up your personal Rolodex. Well, my dad had been doing it for 3 years before me in the same town, working with the same company. My Rolodex was barren, so my dad had taken every opportunity that we had as a family connection as well as all my connections. So there wasn't much there. So I started off really doing a lot of cold calling, and what I realized very quickly was that I would try to get an appointment in an area. I would work hard to get that appointment, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy in the beginning. It became easier over time as you got better about your approaches and overcoming objections and things like that. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, you really it was a numbers game. You had to go talk to enough people to try to overcome that. And very quickly, I started realizing like what I was really good at, what had done well for me in the past, when I was in real estate, was networking. And so, you don't wait until, like I say, no, I didn't wait until the rain started to build the ark. You shouldn't wait to build your network until you need it. Yeah. And fortunately, you had a great network already built, so you're kind of switching from, hey, I'm no longer in real estate, now I'm in this, and start to kind of change that approach. So it took some time. Sure. But I would say to anyone out there, if you're brand new, is, start working on some networking opportunities. Get into, there are free ones out there. There are inexpensive ones out there. I know a lot of people have concerns about, money, and I don't have a lot of money to do these things. I didn't either. So it was things like Chamber of Commerce, which is not that expensive to join. BNIs can be expensive. Networking groups like that can be. But things like Chamber of Commerce's are really not that expensive, and you get some really great approach. And in some cities, you can pay one membership fee, and it allows you to join multiple chambers in that area, so they all kind of work together. So look into some of those sort of things. There's a lot of free business opportunities out there, ways to just network with other business people to start allowing you to connect. And at the end of the day, even if you get no business out of it, you're just sharpening your skills. Right. You're getting better at being able to talk about your business. You're understanding where you're droning on and where you're not talking enough. You're seeing, the glaze on people's eyes versus what they're interested in, and you start realizing maybe how I can speak with people. But at the end of the day, I always, and for everyone out there who's in merchant services, if you're listening to this, I think figuring out your ratio is very important. I learned this years into the business, and it became kind of my calling card of management style was to help everyone understand their ratio. And what I mean by that is taking how many sales you do in a month and reverse engineering that to, okay, how many closed sales did I have versus how many appointments did I run to try to get those versus how many appointments I had in general versus how many calls it took together. Kind of reverse engineering that, figuring out your proportions. In the beginning, you don't know what those numbers are, right? And so I would always give people kind of the general idea of like, okay, if you want to be successful in this industry, you want to probably sell, let's just use easy math. You want to sell 4 deals every month, once a week, let's say. So now let's reverse engineer that and say, okay, you're typically in this industry, if you're pretty good at this, you're going to close a third to a half of the appointments you run. If they're a qualified appointment, they're interested,
Sure.
You got the product, which you do, you're gonna be able to close about a third. But let's say you're not good. You're only closing, let's say, 25% of those. You can go 20%, let's just go 25%, all right? So now I need to close 4 of them, I'm gonna close 25% of them, that means I need to run 16 appointments in a month to get there. So if I need to run 16 appointments in a month, let's even say 20%, let's go a little higher and say 20%, or 20 appointments in a month, you're only closing 20% of them, right? So now it's 20 deals in a month, or 20 appointments in a month I need to run. So in other words, I need to run 1 appointment every working day. So that means I need to set 1 appointment every working day. So this is where I would just break it down to the most common, easy denominator is, so then just make it your focus every single day. Top of the funnel thinking, top of the sales funnel, set 1 appointment every day.
Right.
If I set 1 appointment every day, that means thereby I'm running 1 appointment every day on average, and by the law of averages there, now I'm closing 1 deal a week or 4 deals a month. That's gonna make for a solid business long term. So for anyone who's starting out new in this, you're out there doing the cold calling, or maybe you're into networking, or maybe you've been in this for years, but you're kind of lost in that struggle of it, is just, get down to the most common, lowest easy thing that I can control. I can control how many appointments I get to set. I can control that number. Think of the top of the funnel activity, and then let the rest just work itself out through the law of averages.
Yeah. I think that's such a simple way to do it, right? And since we also said this would be the baseball episode, the analogy there I think works, right? It's the same way. If you know you're trying to get to a certain number of hits or a certain number of RBIs, it's the at-bats that matter, right?
Right.
You've got to get to the plate with a chance to produce
That's right.
in order to get to the numbers that you're trying to get to. I think it's exactly the same thing.
That's
right?
the common. That's it. And then over time, the things adjust, right? Either your 20% close ratio gets better and turns into a third and 50%, and you keep setting the same number of appointments. Oh my gosh, you're selling lots more deals. What ends up typically happening to people is the close rate starts going up, so they start setting less appointments, just because you get busier. You're closing deals, now you're having to install deals, now you're going to follow up with them. You're doing after, if you're doing it right, you're going back and checking up with them. So you get a little busier, you're setting less appointments, but you're closing more deals because your closing ratios are getting better, your confidence is up.
Yeah. So obviously talking about referrals, right, and setting appointments, how do those two kind of work together, right? How do you use that network or an opportunity for referrals to help you set those appointments as a way of part of that math?
Right. So there's 2 big things I did, and I see, and I'll talk about what I did, but these are also things that I see as being very successful across a wide swath of different types of people. So I think these are things that be successful for most people. One is when you're in networking, I learned the hard way that if you're too general, people lose how they're able to refer you.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, when I would talk to people, I would say, hey, who do you know that takes credit cards, right? It's such a large, they know lots of people, right?
Basically everyone, right?
Yeah. But instead, when I started getting a little more dialed in, and I would say, hey, what I'm really focused on, these couple months right now are auto repair places that people take their cars to get them fixed. Your engine's bad, your muffler fell off, whatever. And those places, because what I typically find in those places is that, they maybe don't realize some of the opportunities for them that they're overlooking.
Sure.
Do you know anyone who is auto repair place? And when I ask then in a networking scenario that, now somebody's, instead of thinking about everyone that takes credit cards, I'm thinking like, oh yeah, Joe down the street, he's a great dude, but Justin would like him.
Yeah.
I started realizing I was getting a lot more referrals that way.
Okay.
And now I'm walking in and saying, hey, Gina referred me, she said I should come in and talk to you, here's why I'm coming in, that sort of thing. That's number one. That was learned the hard way by me, but it was very, very successful, and I've taught that to other people. The other thing I think is absolutely critical, and I don't care what kind of sales you're in, but definitely in our industry, is following up with your existing customers.
Okay.
Very, very important. If they're so used to working with salespeople that sell them and then they never see them again, they never hear from them again, here's an 800 number later, don't call me. Well, obviously you're making residuals every month off of these customers.
Right.
You should want to go back and see them, want to make sure they're happy, but there is a gold mine of networking there. I can tell you how many, so many deals that I received off of customers that, were customers of mine, or even people that I wasn't able to help because maybe they had a proprietary point of sale solution, but still referred me to other people because they liked the way we operated, right? And again, it's the same sort of thing. If you walk in and say, I would always do a follow-up appointment after the install. We would install the system. They'd be running for a month or so. I would set an appointment with them. I'm coming back. We're going to review everything, check your statement, make sure you're priced correctly. Hey, I told you you're going to save about $100. You save $200 actually. I guess I'm going to raise your rates back up. That kind of thing. And you're having fun with them. And at the end of it, it's like, hey, don't forget, I'm paid 100% off commission. I don't make anything unless I help close, more deals, help out more business owners. And again, same sort of thing, talk about the networking, not being like, hey, who do you know?
Right.
But instead, yeah, I know some other people here in the strip mall. What about the bagel store down there, or this record shop? Do you know the owners of that place? Oh yeah, it's it's Joe down there, and it's Tina over here, and they look out there. Oh yeah, it's his F-150's right there. He's there right now. You should go down and talk to him, and that turned into a lot of opportunities. And the same for everybody is you. And I think that's kind of that transition from the beginning salesperson to the long-term relationship of anyone who's listening to this would definitely agree with, is that long-term, you're that first 6 months, that first 9 months, you're doing a lot of cold calling, you're trying to find the business. The longer you're in this, the business starts finding you. Yeah. You start getting the phone calls, people saying, hey, my buddy's opening up this restaurant, I told me he needed to go with you, or I'm opening up a second location, or hey, I just sold my business to so-and-so, or whatever. It starts coming to you instead of you having to go find it.
And you, in that second one, you highlighted a timing that I would have gotten wrong if I had thought about it myself. Because I think there's part of me that thought, okay, well, the moment they decide to sign with you, that's their most likely moment to refer, right? Is they've considered the options and they've decided it's you. I've got them. Let's try and get more out of them. Right. But what you were talking about was maybe even after the first statement, going back and saying, hey, let me show you that all the things I said to you were true, right? And happened. And using that as kind of the timing, and I just thought that was a really interesting distinction.
I don't think I've earned the right yet to ask for a referral, and I truly look at it that way. It's like, when somebody asks me for a referral, to me that is one of the most valuable things I can offer to you. I'm opening up my network and giving you access to my network, which I value a lot, and I think all of us do. And I need to know that, before I give you some other numbers, that I'm not going to look like the fool at the next, dinner party, right?
Right.
And so I need to know that I've earned the right to ask for that referral, right? If you give me one before, great, awesome, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's right for me to ask for it until I've proven that I did what I said I was going to do.
Yeah. I'm always amazed at hearing the stories of the referral partners that you never actually sold to, right? You know, it wasn't the right fit, or it wasn't the right time, or whatever. But the personal connection is there.
Yeah.
The trust is built. The rapport is built. Yeah. And it turns into a great partner, even though they're not actually a customer, right?
And it's funny, the referral partners out there in our industry, I think people think of a lot of the same referral partners. They think of banks that maybe don't sell merchant services. They think of people that are maybe in the food distribution business, people that are maybe selling equipment to restaurants, people that are maybe business brokers that are selling businesses. There's lots of various ones out there. But my actual best referral partner was a guy that sold insurance, not to businesses, but to individuals.
Oh, really?
And he hounded me forever to try to meet with him, and I thought he was just trying to sell me insurance, right? And he was, but at the end of the day, he ended up that he sold to high net worth individuals, that many of them were businesses, and we formed this small little group of people that were like, well, who are you trying to get into meet? And especially when you work in a small town like Des Moines, you got 5 salespeople sitting there that are very active. Chances are someone knows the person you're probably trying to get into, or knows someone who knows somebody, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying, hey, I'm trying to get in front of Chuck that owns, Chuck's Pizza. I'm like, oh, I know Chuck. We've done his insurance for years, man. I'll do his number right now. I'll make a call, right? And that cool little network turned into my best networking opportunity that I absolutely avoided for years, So,
that's funny.
Yeah.
So give me an idea, maybe at the the 6 month mark, the 18-month mark, and then the 3 or 4 year mark. What were the split like, right? What was the percentages of cold calling and kind of traditional prospecting versus referrals for you?
So definitely in the first 6 months, it was the vast majority. It was I want to say 100% or damn near 100%. I would say. I don't remember the rest of your time frames, but I'm gonna make them up. So a year into it, I'd say it had flipped to where cold calling was. There was very little cold calling, and almost what I would call warm calling. And I'll talk about that here after we get done. And then 18 months into it, almost very little warm calling, and almost all 100% responding to referrals and additional requests from your existing customers. And so what I mean by warm calling is, and I'd recommend this to anybody out there, was talking to the businesses around the appointments you already had.
Okay.
And we used to call it, doing the diamond, but it was basically every business that touched the business you were going to. So if I had an appointment at 3 o'clock, I was going there at 2 o'clock, and I was talking to the businesses around them, like, hey, I'm working in this area. I've got a meeting with Joe's Tire actually in an hour here. I'm sure you know Joe. I just wanted to stop and introduce myself. Just talking to the people around there,
Yeah.
So, it was cold calling, sure. But there was a little bit of a connection there. I already had an appointment, and for anyone who's thinking like, oh my God, that's a great approach, I'm just going to lie and say I had an appointment with Joe's Tire. Don't do that. Because they all talk.
Because they do talk. Yeah.
And they're going to know hey, you don't know Joe, And so, or maybe, Joe sold the business 2 years ago. It's actually Mandy that runs the business now or something, they're going to know you're a liar. So, but I would do a lot of that.
Okay.
I thought it was I felt like, especially after you're into it for 12 to 18 months, it actually becomes not the best use of your time, right? It's not the most efficient use of your time, because you can do networking, you can go back and talk to existing customers, and it's not the best use of your time to go out and just spend all day cold calling, but actually, talking to business owners around that appointment you had or around your existing businesses, that became the best use of your time. And so, for me, I actually had a thing I created just to help keep me accountable. I called it the 555s, and it was a stupid name, horrible. Not marketing, that's your job. But for me, it was, every week I was going to go to 5 networking events. Okay. So ribbon cuttings, business before, breakfast or whatever it might be. Some sort of networking event. I would do 5 of those every week. I was going to meet with 5 people I'd never met with before. That could be new business owners, that could be networking partners, somebody that I'd never met before.
Sure.
And then I was going to meet with 5 existing customers every week, and not have a formal meeting, but just make sure that I had a conversation with them.
Yeah.
That became my thing that held me accountable to that structure, and made sure I had just a never-ending supply of referral partners and referrals coming towards me.
And you kind of answered, my next question was just thinking, okay, so that going back, say after the official statement, or the first statement.
Yeah.
Right? First statement is a great opportunity to kind of earn some trust and earn a referral. How often would you try and get back in front of either literally or over the phone with your merchants? Was that did you have kind of a regular cadence, or did you try and go a certain amount of time?
No, it was just, if I was in the area,
Okay.
hey, I've got 15 extra minutes, I'm stopping and talk to Sarah, right? And there wasn't necessarily, but I also lived my life, and I think if you're not doing this, you absolutely should be, that I was trying to only do business with my customers as much as possible, right? They're believing in me, I should believe in them. So I'm eating dinner at our restaurant, the customers, my family grew up knowing that, we're not going to Applebees, we're going to John's Apple Tree down the street, like we're not, that's what we did. And so whether it be your dry cleaners, your auto repair place, your oil change, your dentist, whoever, like choose those people that are supporting you. So it gave me kind of a natural opportunity to, like, I'm believing in you, you believe in me, and you got to have those natural interactions.
Yeah.
And trying to do it when, you guys know your customers, so you know what they drive, and the F-150's there, so Jody's there, I'm gonna stop in and say hi real quick, she's there. Don't, if she's not there, you know where to stop in.
Yeah.
But that was a big part for me. And then you started, you became friends with them. At the end of the day, I mean, if you truly care about people, they became friends, and people that, you go to their kids' birthday parties, and they come to your things. It was crazy how much. I remember one customer of mine, and I doubt she'll ever listen to this, but Sarah Hill, and her husband owned a very successful restaurant, and I remember when I signed them up at a pretty high rate, and not knowing, and this was truly a cold call. I literally walked in there, they just happened to be there. They said, "Oh, we haven't done anything with credit card processing yet." And I'm, okay, let's go. And so I signed them up. They became great friends of ours, and we'd stop in there all the time. And I would stop, and there was multiple times where I put in front of Sarah a price reduction form and said, "Hey, I need to sign this. I'm going to reduce your costs, because I charged you way too much in the beginning, and I want to actually reduce your price."
Yeah.
And she would throw it away, and she would say, "I want to know that when I call you, that you're going to answer the phone. So I don't want you to charge me less. It's okay." They had a very successful business, and it was cool things like that. You realize, like, they're not just, at the end of the day, just a business relationship. There's more than that between you and your customers if you're doing it right.
Yeah. I think one of the things that surprised me as I got into payments and started to realize the different personalities, I always assumed that, salespeople had to be your kind of type A, extrovert, highly competitive, alphas, right? And there are definitely.
Absolutely. Plenty of those.
So maybe even the person sitting across from me right now. But also realizing that there were folks that were much more about kind of the interpersonal relationships, or to the point of even being introverted or analytical, or things that maybe were really far on the other end of the spectrum, and realizing that referrals were why, right? I think of, there was a year that I was at Heartland, and I think our number one sales guy was a guy that I don't think had left his house, right?
Yeah.
He just, deals came to him, and it was the kind of like, "Hey, so-and-so told me you're my credit card guy, can you send me whatever I need to sign?" And that was it. That was like an entire year's worth, and he set at the time, the company record in margin. And I just remember being fascinated by that.
Yeah.
But as I got to know other agents and realizing, like, oh no, that's actually, for the folks, especially the folks that see that progressive success.
Right.
It's happening in one way or another, right? And again, there's some variances in personality and preferences and all that. But it's one of those, I think most people that are listening to us that have been in the agency for a while are doing referrals to some degree, and this is hopefully an encouragement of, like, hey, continue to do that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Pour more investment into that.
I could talk for hours on this subject because there's so many great ideas on how to do this. There's not one way that's better than others.
Right,
right. There might be for you specifically, but yeah.
And then for the folks that maybe they're new to this industry or considering this industry, like this is a very real part. It's not a lazy way. It's not a shortcut.
No.
It's not a cheat sheet. But man, it's how people build a portfolio that continues to grow and expand
Right.
For years and years, right?
Like you talked about the person being that introvert. I remember working at a company once, same sort of thing. Introvert, one of the top 5. I met with him to find out, what does he do? I've always been that person like to seek out, hear their stories, and never been shy about that. And he shared with me, and I'm not endorsing this, but this is what he did, and it was just like, wow, that works. Is every deal he would sign up, he would tell them, by the way, there is a $300 annual fee I charge. And the company gave you the ability to charge, they had zero cost, you charge whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
We charged a $300 annual fee. However, I had the ability to reduce that. And for every successful referral you give me that I sign up, I'll drop that $100. And so he would, he'd get people in there that are like calling and saying, hey, you need to sign up with this guy. He's going to take care of you, blah, 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 just so they would save on their referral. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, he had this official form he had created where they'd fill it out and like terms and conditions. And I was like, wow. Like, to me that, I would not do that, but like, just such an interesting way how just using the power of referrals to drive his business.
It's everything right and wrong with our industry
all wrapped into one.
In one story, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure this will not be the last time we talk about referrals, but I appreciate you sharing, especially your story and kind of your history with it. Again, I hope folks take it away as just an encouragement to make it a real part of what they're doing.
It's important, especially in today's industry for sure. It's very important.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.